Our biggest expenses can be our cars, especially when unexpected repair bills hit. Not anymore. If you own a vehicle with less than 130,000 miles, is less than 12 years old, has a warranty about to expire, or even no warranty at all, you could stop paying for car repairs. Roadside assistance, towing, and rental coverage are all included. Don't wait for the next repair. Make one free call right now to see if you qualify. If your vehicle is less than 12 years old, has less than 130,000 miles, even if it's out of warranty, paying for car repairs can become a thing of the past. Call us right now and get your car protected before your next repair bill hits. Get protection and no more repair bills. Call 800-696-1030. Again, 800-696-1030. That's 800-696-1030. 800-696-1030.
Joe had huge problems with the IRS.
I knew it was coming. I hadn't filed taxes since 1990.
All the IRS letters coming in added up to a nightmare.
To get up to like $68,000, my heart started beating fast. It's like, there's no way, man. I mean, I ain't going to be able to do this.
Then they stopped his paycheck.
So that's when I started making phone calls and found U.S. Tax Shield.
U.S. Tax Shield went to work immediately.
They just took the bull by the horns. What blew my mind is he called the IRS right then and there.
So why is U.S. Tax Shield A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau? Joe knows.
They saved me a ridiculous amount of money.
If you owe more than $10,000 to the IRS or state, choose the company Joe chose, U.S. Tax Shield.
It was the best decision I made. U.S. Tax Shield is the way to go. Life is good. Thank you, Lord.
Call 800-471-3287.
U.S. Tax Shield. Boo-rah. Yes.
800-471-3287. 800-471-3287.
Folks, this is America Off the Rails. I'm your host, Rick Robinson. For those of you tuned in from the beginning, you did notice a little bit of an issue. I do apologize. Host Monkey is still hanging out with me. I haven't been able to ship the dang thing back to JD yet, but I think he's back in town effective today, so I'm going to get that crazy thing shipped out as much as I can, or as quickly as I can. I don't know if you guys were a part of the audience for when I filled in for JD, but Host Monkey managed to get loose in the studio, break a bunch of things. It was not a good night. But anyway, so this is America Off the Rails. I'm your host, Rick Robinson. I'll be joined here in just a moment by my usual Monday cohort, Mr. Jared Day, one of our producers here, also a part of the campaign to elect Kelly Ward and unseat the McRhino, otherwise known as John McCain. Before we get heavily into everything, I just want to give a quick shout-out to all the affiliates. Of course, the home station right here, right now, where we can always be heard Monday through Friday at 7 Eastern, 6 Central, K98 Talk, also Spark Radio Network, which is our home radio network. Then, of course, the first place to pick us up was AMFM247.com, which is the first place we went through syndication. Available in 7 local low-power radio markets, as well as their Live 365 stream. So feel free to look us up there. We're on there every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 1 Eastern. Then we have Red State Talk Radio, which was the next one to finalize with us, and that, of course, we can be heard there once a week on Sundays at 5 Central, 6 Eastern, so kind of early in the morning, but for all of you folks that like to get up early on Sunday and drink a cup of coffee, you can always check out the featured episode over there. Then, of course, we have the Leading Edge Radio Network, which was one of the last ones to finalize with us, but does carry us 5 days a week, Monday through Friday at 7 Central. Then we have SHR Media, which was the one that kind of landed in the middle, and they are Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 11 Eastern, last time I checked the schedule. Now, of course, that's just where the stream can be heard. This show is also available in several different other platforms for podcast. FM Player, then we have iHeartRadio, Stitcher, tune in when the show is live, and then I think I have something trying to bleed through.
The Edge Ready Room.
A moment here. Yay for the host monkey trying to play a commercial a little early. you'll get your chance later. Quit pressing the buttons. All right, so at this point, we're going to go ahead and take a really quick break, pay a couple more bills, and we'll be back with the official start of the show. I'll be back with you guys here in just a couple seconds. Alright folks, this is Rick Robinson with you. I want to tell you about some friends of mine from a company called Security Enforcement Specialists. When I ran my security agency for 12 years, I worked with one of these partners on a daily basis. He's been involved in this agency now, and with his other partner, they do have over 30 years of experience in the private security industry. If you own a business and you need someone to keep you or your customers or residents safe, then I highly recommend contacting Security Enforcement Specialists today. Give them a call at 405-703-1796. Again, that's 405-703-1796. Again, tell them Rick from K98 Talk sent you. Like I said, if you need the help, they are here for you. So make sure that you go look them up, check them out, and see what they can do.
Wrong way. Welcome to the place. Welcome.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it. There to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
We will keep this promise to the American people. If you like your doctor, you will be able to keep your doctor, period. If you like your health care plan, you will be able to keep your health care plan, period.
This is the most transparent administration in history. There's not even a smidgen of corruption.
Fact is, we had 4 dead Americans. What difference at this point does it make?
If you got a business, you didn't build that.
Oh, welcome to the face. Welcome to the face of the new democracy. Don't expect us to admit a mistake. We're paying off election debts to those on the take. Attorney General's lying even while
it's time to hear the truth about America's biggest challenges. You're listening to America Off the Rails with your host, Rick Robinson.
All right, folks, it's just a few minutes past the hour of 6 right here in beautiful downtown Oklahoma City. Again, I am Rick Robinson, and this is America Off the Rails, and I am joined today by my usual Monday counterpart, Mr. Jared Day. Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on, Rick.
It's always a pleasure. All right, so I guess before we get into anything that we were actually going to talk about today, why don't you, if you don't mind, go ahead and give folks a little bit of a brief update of what it is that you've been up to lately, and should they choose to assist you in that, how they can help.
Well, personally, my site is rebootingliberty.com, and I'm working on a radio broadcast, and hopefully it'll be on K98 Talk, and also mostly been working on the campaign to retire John McCain. It's starting to get more attention around the country based on social media response, and if you feel the way I do, which if you're listening to this show, there's a good chance you're not a big fan of John McCain. Even with the GOP, he's 30% popular. If you're on Facebook, join our grassroots group. If you just type in Kelly Ward National Grassroots, you can join our national team. We're building a large team of people to work with us on social media and then in their own states. Also, if you want to go to kellyward.com/join, you can sign up and get email and keep up with the campaign and get involved. This is going to be a big Senate race. Start next month. It's going to get bigger as some of the national groups start looking at all the races and make some decisions on things. So just keep, follow her on Twitter at Kelly Ward Arizona AZ. It's at KELLI Ward AZ. It's Kelly with an I. And she's on, if you've never met her before on social media, she responds personally to tweets, and you can ask her questions through Twitter. She'll answer them. You can also go on her Facebook page as Kelly Ward for Arizona, and she responds personally to all questions, which is very unique, and I think it's a really good thing. That's about it.
Well, if anybody is interested in helping out with that, of course, he did give you the information on how you can do that. I myself am looking to try to help in any way that I can. So anytime I can, I'll have anybody involved with the campaign on the show up until we get to the point where we kind of have to deal with those pesky regulations that you and I were discussing. But as it stands right now, there's been a lot going on in the news lately, especially about the most recent debates. Did you happen to watch any of those, or did you have time? Or
I was working, but I did DVR them, and over a period of a day, I watched them. They're kind of long, you know.
Well, you know, they did seem a little longer than usual. I don't know if it had something to do with CNN, but even the one that was only supposed to be an hour seemed like it ran for at least an hour and 20 minutes with all the pre-debate talk-up. And then, of course, there was the audible, they called at some point, that had what was supposed to be a 2-hour debate extended to a 3-hour debate. And then it wound up seeming like it ran for actually almost 3.5. I'm sorry, but is it me, or is that just a little bit too much TV time for the folks that were up there?
It probably was, and you know, I already had got a lot of information before I watched them, so it was kind of interesting to read what everyone was saying and then watch them. That was kind of backwards. Usually I'm watching it in real time, and as far as standing, hats off to I can't imagine how, you know, women talk about heels and how hard it is to stand. Carly Fiorina stood there for what said 3 hours, and she didn't even cringe.
Oh,
that
trust me, because
I hear all the women are tweeting about that.
Dude, I would have been cringing. I mean, you know, I can't even stand in tennis shoes for that long without it starting to hurt. I'm just saying. But it's interesting that you bring up Fiorina, because one of the biggest things that everybody's been talking about is the fact that, you know, she wound up on the small stage the first time. She fought her way up to the main stage, and then after the main stage conversation, she's actually moved herself up to number 2 in the polls. Of course, Donald Trump is now basically saying, you know, you can't stand listening to her for more than 10 minutes before you get a headache, and all the typical things that the Donald will normally say when he's annoyed with somebody. But there's an interesting development with him, because thanks to a recent situation the media has hyped up pretty heavily, he seems to actually be, for the first time ever, starting to slip in the polls. And I think that's a combination of both that certain circumstance, which we'll talk about in a second, and also has a lot to do with the fact that I don't really feel like he did that good of a job in this last round of the debate. It was more of the same thing, and I think people are finally starting to catch on.
Yeah, it was. He definitely wasn't. He seemed a little tired. Actually, he seemed a little bit sedate.
Yeah, I know. Especially after all the. I mean, I don't mean to give Bush any props, but he was one of the ones that I thought actually did fairly well that night, comparatively to how he was before.
Oh,
I especially like the fact that he kept feeding off of Donald Trump's low energy comment and kind of turned it around. That's my favorite thing to see folks do, because it's kind of how I roll. Somebody tries to give me a hard time and I flip it. So when I see somebody else able to do that and pull it off rather smoothly, I'm kind of like, hey, that was pretty cool. But, you know.
Yeah, I agree.
But, you know, I think, like I said, Fiorina was probably the biggest positive surprise for the night. I think the most negative surprise for me for the night honestly had to be Walker, because it just seemed like he wasn't even really there. Walker and Carson just kind of seemed like they phoned it in, and I think Walker's officially paying the price for it, because as I was driving to work, from work, I had heard that he suspended his campaign and was about to officially make the announcement now that he was down to like half of a percentage point in the polls.
Right. Yeah, I heard that too.
Which is kind of crappy. I mean, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But if you think about it, it's really kind of crappy because we've lost the governor that created the most jobs during a difficult economy, and now the guy that's managed to stand up to the union several times and actually come away with barely any scratches are now officially out of the race, and yet we still have the hair brigade.
Yeah, right. We have Kasich and, well, Chuck Norris is probably a little bit depressed today. You know, he lost a Walker Texas Ranger. Real bad, huh?
Ow, that would hurt my head. But that's okay. Oh, but yeah, I mean, and it's kind of depressing to me because the folks that actually have decent track records at being able to do their jobs. I mean, I didn't honestly know how well Perry was going to be able to do, especially after he started coming under attack in his own state for some things that he may or may not eventually face charges over. I don't know if that's been settled yet or not, but I don't think it has been. But I'm really honestly surprised that Walker could not do better because he's managed to fight off so many attacks in his home state. He was like a rock star there, and then you put him into whatever. I mean, you know, it's kind of like going, I guess, from AAA ball to the major leagues. All of a sudden, you know, you may look great when you're doing the AAA stuff, but couple of weeks in the big leagues and it kind of turns out that maybe you don't know as much about the game as you thought you did. And I don't know, maybe it has more to do with the fact that the American people right now seem like they really don't want another politician, which concerns me just a little bit if you want me to be completely honest, because we've already had an unknown quantity for the last 7 years. And look at everything that happened with that guy. So, I don't know.
Yeah, it makes me nervous. But you're absolutely right. People, based on the polls and the top, people don't want another politician. And I'd be lying if I said I wasn't fed up with politicians and that I would almost... It's like with Trump, and I don't support him. I'd vote for him if he got the nomination. But it is, in my head, rolling the dice a little bit and playing with fire. You know, when he may do some... It's a gamble, you know?
And I completely agree. It's interesting that you bring that up because I know plenty of people that have basically said if Trump gets the nomination, they can't do it. And I'm just thinking, so what? You're going to vote for the other side or are you just going to stay home? Because here's my thing. I can say all day long that if Trump gets the nomination, I don't want to vote for him. But if Trump is the one that gets the nomination and I choose not to vote for him, am I any different than the people that I shouted down in 2012 for not voting for Romney if I decide to say, hey, you know, I don't like this guy, so I'm just going to stay home, or I'm going to write in Mickey Mouse, or I'm going to write in none of the above? Who am I honestly showing a lesson to at that point? Because all I'm doing at that point is putting my selfish desires above what could possibly be the good of the country. Because, you know, it's interesting that you bring up Trump because Patrick Fernari was on with me again a few days ago, and he actually mentioned, you know, that Trump is not really his ideal choice either. But with everything that's going on, and as far left as this country has slid, that maybe we need a transformational, or not a transformational candidate like we got with Obama, but more of a transitional candidate. Somebody to ease us back the other direction so the next election cycle we can finish getting at least back to the center, maybe if not even a little further to the right. And it was an interesting point because I honestly think that may be what folks are going for, especially with the fact that at this point our top three folks have had almost nothing to do with politics for the majority of their careers, other than, of course, Trump garnering favors with money through for politicians. Which I'm a little uncomfortable with, but at least he admitted it and said, hey, I'm friends with everybody because I give them money and then they owe me favors.
Yep.
A little creepy in my book.
Yeah, it is. And as soon as Carly shut up after the last debate, I thought it was interesting, not really surprising, but still interesting to watch how the attack started and they started digging stuff up. And they've dug enough stuff up that I've been inclined to go check it out because some of the claims are... they're damaging if they're true, and a couple of them I haven't figured out. Like they just tore apart her speech and tried to counter everything she said, basically. And I don't have enough information about them to make a call for myself. But things about they gave her trouble because her child was adopted. and it wasn't her child, and they were 35 when they died. Things like that aren't really, you know, you can still vote for someone if they, the sort of things that aren't as important as maybe giving Hillary Clinton millions of dollars to run for president, you know, or donations to get favors for your business, that sort of thing.
Well, I mean, the biggest thing I think that I find concerning, and I've even seen some conservative folks posting things like this lately, and I can't find any record of it, are things that she supposedly said, I think it was in like 2005, 2006, where she supposedly mirrored a lot of the things that President Obama had said in the past about, you know, how much work the Muslims had done for our country and blah, blah, blah. I can't find any record of those things, but there are a lot of folks passing those around, and it's kind of,
yeah. I haven't seen the records, any proof of that either yet, but I did see a tweet from Donald Trump that said, congratulations to my friend Barack Obama, like he's a great guy or something. So that, to me, is, I mean, seriously? Have you seen that tweet?
I mean, I guess that would depend on whether it was a 2008 tweet or a 2012 tweet, because if it was 2012, then obviously he's just telling folks what they want to hear. I mean, in 2008, and, well, officially through about February of 2009, I actually tried to give Obama the benefit of the doubt until I figured out what he was doing behind closed doors when he basically called all of the Republican representatives in and basically, you know, told them, you know, come in, bring your ideas, we'll sit down, we'll talk. And then basically when they actually came in with all their ideas, he basically put his feet up on the desk and said, hey, guys, guess what? Elections have consequences. I won. F you.
2012 it was.
Then, yeah, it doesn't change my point of view that Trump is a douche. I mean, there's just not any nicer way that I can put that. I don't like the guy. I've never liked the guy. I don't care how much money you can make. To me, it depends just as much how you get the money. And when it comes out that basically you're trying to tell me that you know better what to do with the tax code, when the majority of how you've made your money has to do with our tax code and the screwed up way that it works, and you have all these people in business, and you want to tell me that you'll be the first one to stand up and fix it, I call BS, because all your friends are going to tar and feather you if you try. And everybody knows that, apparently, except for you.
Yep.
So, about time for break, but I guess before we take the break, I do want to play something that I don't know if you've heard yet, and then get your take on it, and then I will probably save my take until after we come back from the break.
By finally dealing with what's been going on, Donald Trump, and a deal with a questioner that claimed that the president was Muslim. Let me ask you the question this way. Should a president's faith matter? Should your faith matter to voters?
Well, I guess it depends on what that faith is. If it's inconsistent with the values and principles of America, then of course it should matter. But if it fits within the realm of America and consistent with the Constitution, no problem.
So do you believe that Islam is consistent with the Constitution?
No, I don't. I do not. I would not advocate that we put a Muslim in charge of this nation. I absolutely would not agree with that.
And you...
All right. So that is the most recent statement made by presidential hopeful Ben Carson on NBC's Meet the Press. And he's being called to task for it by groups like CARE, and several other Muslim groups have called for his removal and his withdrawal because they don't feel that he should attain the highest office of the land when he has such religious acrimony, I guess is a good way to put it. Any thoughts on what you've heard there and your opinion on it?
Well, it's. I'm not surprised that there's outrage from the politically correct, and you knew CARE would be all over it. He could have answered that without a yes or no question. He could have gave his opinion. I don't know if he really believes that, and he may believe that in a way, but I guess it's hard to not give a yes or no answer to that question, but he should have explained himself when he did it, because Sharia law is also consistent with Islam, and it's in their doctrine, and it comes part of a legal system. And when you're talking about the Constitution, we're already having states preemptively banning Sharia law before it becomes an issue, before it becomes a point where we're trying to put it into the state constitutions. We have states using the 10th Amendment to preemptively stop that from happening in the future. So poor Ben, I think he's done. Maybe he should have elaborated a little bit. He could have not done so much damage, but it's a shame because he's a nice guy, and he's great for the race. I wasn't going to vote for him, but it's a shame.
All right, so as promised, I will give you my take on it when we come back from the break. It is just getting pretty close to the top of the hour here, so we're going to go ahead and take breaks so we have a little more room on the backside. I'll be with you here in just a couple of minutes, right here on America Off the Rails. I'm your host, Rick Robinson, joined by my good friend who hangs out with me usually every Monday, Mr. Jared Day. We'll be back with you here in just a couple of minutes.
A show that will change internet radio as you know it.
Okay, so let's talk about the story, which I think is hilarious. I'm just going to refer to it as the poop plane, because, like, what else are you going to call it? But there was this plane, okay? It took off. It's the British Airways. They were going to Dubai. I have a hard time pronouncing that one.
It was British Airways? It wasn't Jet. It wasn't Jet Poo?
It wasn't.
Couldn't resist. I'm sorry.
I like it. This story, if we've ever had a story that is up our alley, it's this one. It's bathroom humor up from front to back of the airplane, apparently. They had to turn around to go back to Heathrow because they said the smelly poo in the toilet became unbearable for passengers, and it was so bad. They decided it's so bad that they had to turn around and go back rather than continue their flight. They decided that there wasn't enough Febreze, there wasn't enough anything to handle this.
Maybe they should see a doctor. Is there a GoFundMe for this guy?
It must be a woman, because a woman's going to be mortified and embarrassed. If this is a guy, you know that he's like out there on Twitter and everything else saying, dude, I took down an airplane with how bad that I laid it down.
There was an old woman who flew on jet poo. She ate so many burritos she didn't know what to do.
So we turned the plane around because they made a big stink. We've just made it into a haiku at the end, but there had to be something.
Real Serious Nonsense, Mondays, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, now on K98 Talk.
Our military service members volunteer to protect us in the most dangerous places around the world. They step up. And when they are severely ill or injured, returning to their families is only the beginning of their long road home. Beyond all the hospitals and doctors and surgeries they need just to survive, they also deserve whatever they need to truly live. All the in-home care and day-to-day help they need to live independently, on their own terms. Wounded Warrior Project long-term support programs were established to provide these brave men and women whatever they need to continue their fight for independence, at no cost, for life. So many of them need us, and it's time for a grateful nation to step up. Find out how you can do your part at findwwp.org.
Are you conservative in a world of liberal?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're not alone. Hey, I'm Daniel Stafford, host of the Stafford Voice, and I'd like to invite you to tune in each Monday, 10 p.m. Eastern, where I'll break down the events of the week, and together we'll learn about how they affect you. So, sit back and get ready for the good, the bad, and the ugly of talk radio right here on K98 Talk.
Hey folks, Slickery Trigger here. I'd like to take a minute to tell you about Rebel Road Tactical. As a defensive pistol instructor, I've had the opportunity to observe many different holster designs and configurations. And one thing is clear. Many of my students won't carry a pistol. Or worse, they'll carry one without a holster at all. Holster designers aren't making holsters for normal people. It seems that most holsters are either an expensive piece of gear designed for Rambo or a piece that doesn't fit or function the way real people need it to fit and function. So, like any good Texan, I decided to learn to form kydex and design one myself, one that would fit the needs of average people. The result is the Rebel Road Tactical CRT Modular. The CRT stands for Carry, Range, and Training. Its thin and lightweight curved design minimizes printing and is adjustable to fit just right for superior comfort and function. Check us out after the show at rebelroadconcealed.blogspot.com.
Alright, folks, we're back. We're live. We're into the bottom half of the show. Did you miss us? We still got a lot of show left, so don't worry about it. Alright, so as promised, when we got back from the break, I was going to give you my take on whether or not Ben Carson, in a nice way to put it, has stepped into the pudding. First thing I want to say is CARE. You have basically been labeled in everything that I can find as a terrorist organization, so you need to sit down and shut up. The other thing, Islam is not simply a religion. Islam is also an ideology. Ideology as in communism, as in socialism. Would you elect someone who was an espoused member of the National Aryan movement as president? Somehow I seriously think not. So why is it all of a sudden when Ben Carson says, hey, I don't really think that a Muslim leader would fit in with what it was that the Founding Fathers intended? I tend to agree. There's going to be lots of folks that are going to send me hate mail about that. I don't care. Here's the thing. We keep saying that we want people that are running for office to be honest with us and tell us what they really think, but then we shout them down when they do and say, there's no reason that you should have said that. Really, I have a question for you, and it's a question I've been asking for a long time, so I'm going to ask it again. How can you tell a non-radicalized Muslim from a radicalized Muslim? Until, of course, after the fact. Because the simple, honest answer to that question, and I know it pisses people off, but the simple, honest answer to that question is you can't. And let me tell you this, when all of you who claim to be moderate Muslims actually do your part and start shouting down all of the idiots that you claim are dragging your religion down with you, then at that point, maybe, just maybe, we can look at whether or not we should have a Muslim in the White House. But, I've said this before too, everyone keeps saying that Obama is a Christian. There's a very specific verse that nobody likes to talk about in the Bible that says, you will know my people by their works. Look at what Obama has done, and then tell me that he deserves the label of being a Christian. He holds Ramadan dinners in the White House. How is that something that a Christian would do? He goes to mosques and prays to Muhammad. How is that something that a Christian not only would do, but should do? So not only do I think that Ben Carson didn't say anything wrong, I applaud him for not only saying what he thinks and sticking to it, but still not backing down, even though it may cost him the election. I mean, let's face it, he didn't have a super large following anyway. But the simple fact of the matter is he's doing what we, the American people, keep telling us, telling our politicians that we want them to do. Be honest with us, tell us how you really feel, and let us make a decision. Now, if he's done that and it cost him the election, at least he was honest. My point is, why should it cost him an election when the simple fact of the matter is there is really no way to tell a non-radical Muslim from a radical Muslim, except for when they tell you they're not radical right before they blow something up. Just my thoughts.
That's an excellent point, Rick, about Carson. You know, we want our politicians to be just say it like it is. It's like Dr. Arrington says, speak the truth and endure the consequences. Now, Ben Carson's going to endure the consequences, but he stuck to his principles, and he'll go. If he won't win because of it, maybe, but he can go home knowing that he didn't sell himself out in his own beliefs, and that would if all the candidates did that, we'd probably be left with a shill for the Democratic Party. We'd be left with Kasich or something.
Well, I mean, the biggest thing is let's just be honest, and this isn't to keep giving Dr. A props, but I love his slogan. I've actually started adopting it on my own. And it's one of the reasons why even some of the folks that have been with me for a long time have noticed there have been some changes with my show. And it's simply because I'm not willing to be politically correct anymore. I will do it on shows like Finding Common Ground when part of the overall issue there is to try to get everybody to realize that we have more in common with each other than we do the idiots in D.C. But when it comes to shows like this, I'm done being politically correct, and that's exactly what they wanted Carson to do. And this is not the time for political correctness. We have information from our intelligence agency stating that if we take in the refugees that the White House is demanding that we take in, that at least 1 to 5 to possibly even 10% of those refugees will be infiltrated by ISIS. As it stands right now, over the next couple of years, they are wanting us to take in 200,000 refugees. Even if you take the 1% mark, that's 2,000 people dispersed around this country with God knows what intentions. If it's higher, if it's 5% or 10%, that's a number that we cannot control, nor can we contain.
No, and what about the last 4 years? We've already taken in tens of thousands, over 10,000 at least that I know of for sure, and we're putting them in concentrated areas of the country. They don't even address, they've confirmed some of the places where you have to be Muslim to go. You can't drive your car into that community if you're not Muslim.
But that's my point. Why would we want somebody in the White House that does those things? Why was what Carson said so bad when you look at all the places where Muslims are coming into the country, and they not only do they fail to assimilate, they downright refuse to assimilate, and you're telling me that we shouldn't have somebody that says, I don't really think that's the best thing that we should have in the White House right now. And all of a sudden he's being shouted down from everywhere because that was not a tolerant answer, Dr. Carson. You know what? Tolerance is what got us into this mess in the first place. Tolerance is what has us to the point now where we now have Russia moving in several key places in the Middle East because we have let off the gas and we have let those folks down. And I'm not a fan of nation building, but by God, when we went in there, we should have went in there to finish that and wipe them out and then ask them, now that this is finally over and all of these people are gone, do you want our help? Because if not, we will leave. And then we should have left, but not as long as there was a single radical Islamist left in Iraq and now Syria and everywhere else that they've spread to. And now they're coming across the border in Europe in droves. So much so that Germany, one of the places that the libertarians espouse because they have open borders and they allow everybody to come in. Not anymore because they just reinstated borders because of the fact that they have this overwhelming onslaught of people that they cannot verify and they cannot control. And now we're being told that we need to do the same thing. This makes no sense to me. And for somebody like Carson to be shouted down because he point blank told you, no, I really don't think at this point in time having a Muslim in the White House is a good idea. I'm sorry. Since when did we not have free speech for our candidates anymore?
Right. Well, forget about it. They're walking on eggshells now. He's absolutely right, and it's not he may not be the last candidate to stick to their principles and get caught in that situation with the media and say to themselves, I'm just going to say what I truly believe because this is who I am. And the same thing could happen to them maybe on another issue, you know.
Well, I mean, that's my point. If we continue to run off candidates because they are telling us what they truly believe and we don't want to deal with that any longer, then we deserve whoever we wind up with after this election cycle is over. And we deserve whatever those consequences are. Because we have, to flip Dr. A's slogan around, we have candidates that are telling us the truth. And we refuse to even fathom the consequences, much less think about what we're going to have to do to endure them. Because you think about it right now. We have somebody who says he's a Christian but behaves like a Muslim who's already in the White House. Imagine what would happen if we had somebody who actually was forthcoming and said, yes, I'm a Muslim, I pray to Allah, and I want to be your president. I'm sorry, I'm not willing to vote for that person.
No, and even more scarier than that is in the last 7 years, slowly, we've built up Muslim presence at all levels of our government and in every agency and in all levels of government. So if the executive branch was ruled by we elected a Muslim into that office, president, we're going to, it's a recipe for disaster. We're already, like you said, the world is a tinderbox right now, and I'm hearing some pretty smart people say when history's written about this time period, it's going to be regarded as the beginning of the next world war.
Oh, I'm a firm believer at this point that, and this is going to make a lot of folks mad too, but I'm going to dust off my Bible for a second. I am a firm believer that we are seeing the beginning of what will only be termed as the battle and conflict that occurs in Revelations.
Yeah.
We are in those beginning stages. I don't know how long it's going to take. I wouldn't be surprised if it was sooner rather than later, because this seems like a much accelerated version of the 1939 timeline and build-up. It seems like it's all happening a lot faster than it did then, but I honestly don't know. What I do know is that for the first time, we're seeing things that were prophesied happening, and it talks about the fact that there would be Christians attacked due to their faith all over the world, that everybody would be able to see it, that they would basically be called to either condemn their faith or die. That's already happening with Iraqi Christians. It's been happening now for the last several months. They're basically being forced to either convert to Islam, pay a really large tax, leave the country, or die. And at some point, it's just going to become convert or die. And that's why I'm so afraid of what you see with all of these supposed refugees, because look at the demographics for those refugees. The majority of the people that are fleeing this supposed tyranny are between the ages of 15 and 25, and they're male. That's a problem.
Fighting age.
That's a problem. And the simple fact of the matter is, and I catch flack every time I say this, but I'm going to keep saying it because it's the truth. You cannot tell a radical Muslim from a non-radical Muslim until they pull the trigger. That's why everybody that's so worked up over this kid with the clock, I'm sorry, there's a lot of things about that story that you didn't take into account. Now, I will admit there are some things that I first heard that had me kind of look in the other direction, because even when they said they thought this kid had built a bomb, they didn't do any type of an evacuation. They wound up handcuffing the kid while he was in school in the office, still near the supposed suitcase bomb. But there's so much more to the story that the media is not talking about, like the fact that it basically was sitting under his desk. He never told his teacher what it was, never offered to show anybody the thing until it started making all of this loud ticking noises. And, of course, everybody you look down, you see a suitcase ticking, especially if you're in a room full of kids. What the heck are they supposed to think?
What else would somebody think? It's when you compare it to all the other things that people get worked up about, whether it's a Pop-Tart or anything shaped like a gun. and we have something that resembles very closely any other similar device, real device. I'd say they didn't go far enough with it. They should have locked down the school.
Well, I think, and that's my thing, honestly. And here's the other story that's starting to come out is apparently the kid didn't make the clock himself. He actually disassembled a 1970s variety alarm clock and kind of reassembled it to fit it inside the suitcase. So here's my thing. What was it exactly he was trying to accomplish? Because it's not like he rushed into the school and said, "Hey, teacher, look what I made." He set it under his desk and waited till it started making loud, obnoxious noises of some sort, whether it was ticking or beeping or whatever the case may be, before anybody even figured out what it was. And then when the teacher asked to see what it was, he said he wasn't going to show it to them. So I'm sorry. If you're going to suspend a kid for biting a Pop-Tart into the shape of a firearm, then you, by God, should be suspending a kid for bringing a suitcase to school that's ticking.
Yeah. Did his father see him making that? Did his father know he was bringing a suitcase that resembled a bomb to school? I mean, I haven't seen any interviews with the father. I haven't followed it that close, but I do. The fact that he got invited to the White House, and when I think of the people that haven't got invited to the White House and the people that have, it just, reaffirms what we were just talking about Dr. Carson.
Well, I mean, now we've got the suitcase bomber kid, or the suitcase bomber in training, who, because of the fact that he got in trouble in school, has now been given all kinds of electronic equipment by Bill Gates. Good plan there, Bill. Now he can make a suitcase bomb for real. Good job there, brother. And then, of course, now we have the president, who has now, with the list of folks he had invited to the White House, we can cross off Fruit Loop swimming bathtub lady and kid who makes a makeshift bomb without an explosive device. I'm just saying, what the heck kind of world do we live in now?
It's a bizarro.
I mean, here's the thing, and this is my whole thing. If they hadn't suspended the kid over the Pop-Tart, I'd probably be a little more sympathetic to the kid who basically said, "Hey, I'm going to take a clock apart and put it in a suitcase just to freak out my friends." Hey, more power to you. But when we're doing stupid crap like suspending a kid for taking a bite out of a Pop-Tart and pointing it at somebody and saying the word bang, then I'm sorry, you should get suspended for a suitcase that is... It just really is that simple. Because you can't have it one way and not the other. So the fact that, we got all bent out of shape over the Pop-Tart, and now they're getting all bent out of shape over the suitcase, all I'm saying is neither one of them really should have gotten suspended. But since one did, the other definitely deserves to be.
Absolutely. There's nothing wrong with the way. But are we getting conditioned to this sort of thing, do you think? I think that the sheep of the country that consume television, just in mainstream media, just pop culture, I think that they are getting conditioned to it, because some people that I know hardly had a reaction to it, and I don't know, that makes me nervous too.
Well, I mean, let's think about it for a second. How many false alarms have we had recently? I mean, how many things like this where there's a certain group of folks that are getting worked up, and then it turns out that it's not even anything that was really an explosive device, or there was no rice and gas or anything, or what the heck ever that stuff is called. I mean, there's been all of these things, and I think a lot of it is because, there's that old story, the boy who cried wolf. I think what they're doing is conditioning us to get to the point where we don't pay attention to these as much, because when they don't, then we're just not going to be paying attention to it any longer, because there's no way for us to know that it's a real event or whether it is a real event until it's over. And it really is pretty much that simple. We're being conditioned to ignore it, so that when the next big thing happens, we're going to miss it till it's too late.
Yeah, I think I didn't really get overly, I guess it's paranoid about Jade Helm the way tons of people did. It bothered me in the sense that amount of troops on our soil, and that the map is what really set people off. But the conditioning part of it to be conditioned to allow that type of training, and that I watched some of the videos, and we had a few things going on here, but I think it's all part of conditioning, because I think it's just getting worse. And like you said, the false alarms, and it's not just with fake devices, it's with possible shooters and a lot of things. And it's when it becomes part of more of our daily life, and you see it on the news. I don't know. It really does concern me.
I mean, yeah, it's just something to think about. When you see like the thing with the suitcase from the kid that was made to look like a bomb, that turns out it wasn't a bomb, and then the whole Jade Helm thing where everybody got all worked up and said, "Oh my God, it's the beginning of martial law." The thing about it is, they're not going to do that right away. What they're going to do, and I still think there is an outside chance this may happen. I don't know if it will happen under the Obama administration, but there will come a time when it happens. And I think that is pretty evident by the fact that we have the BLM folks and that have really big ties to communism and everything else that are trying to keep an entire segment of the population completely stirred up. Because at some point, what they're going to do is they'll get things so worked up that at some point the government's going to be able to declare martial law, because the Constitution gets suspended when that happens. And then the military has the ultimate power. And the issue with that is, I think that's one of the reasons why they're stepping up all these exercises, because they keep getting all these folks worked up and they keep saying, "Oh, here it comes," and then this isn't it. What they're waiting for is the time when they hold one of these exercises and nobody comes.
Right, and nobody's recording it, nobody's putting it on YouTube, instantly tweeting it out. Yeah. And, if it happens right closer to 2016 election, of course, if the Constitution's suspended, the election's suspended, and he gets a third term.
Well, I mean, theoretically, he could have a third forever term.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it'll come to that, to be honest, but I do think that we are starting to see some folks in power that are flexing their muscles a little more than they used to, and I think when they start getting less and less of a reaction, which is what's been happening over time for the last decade or so, we'll get even the last few terrorist attacks. I mean, we weren't worked up for over a year by the Boston bombing. We were pretty much back to normal and calm within a couple of months. Everybody still every year shouts Boston strong and everything else, but other than that, we were business as usual again within a couple of months. It wasn't anything like 9/11. It wasn't really anything like we went through here in Oklahoma. And it's because they're starting to happen more often. So everybody's like, yeah, it's just, I mean, eventually if we don't figure out a way to get this stuff under control and stop letting these crazy people in here, we're going to become Israel, where there's M16s on every street corner and nobody bats an eye. I have a problem with that.
Yeah.
All right, so we are coming down to the last couple of minutes of the show here, so why don't you remind everybody where they can find you, and should they choose to, where they can check out that new podcast that I haven't had a chance to review yet.
I'm at rebootingliberty.com, and everything on me is there, and we got some good stories up the last couple days. And if you want to listen to yesterday's podcast about veterans and legal immigration, it's on Spreaker. If you just type in Rebooting Liberty in the search bar, my Spreaker page will come up. You can check that out. And I'm on Twitter at JaredDayAZ.
All right. Well, and of course, I am always found on Twitter at _R_OKC. This show can be found in a multitude of places, so if you're not finding us, it's because you're not looking. And of course, I will be with you back live tomorrow night. I'm not sure what's going on with Wednesday yet, but I do know that next Wednesday I will not be here. I hope to have a guest host sitting in with me then, but we shall see. Or for me then, not with me. But at this point, that is going to do it for this particular episode of America Off the Rails, folks. I am your host, Rick Robinson. I am usually with you live 5 days a week and on replay in several different places. And that will do it for this particular show. Again, my only reminder for the day is don't say that you want politicians to tell you the truth and then get mad at them when they do. Doesn't work out well for anybody involved. I'll be back with you tomorrow.
Screw you guys. I'm going home. Later.
Game over, man. It's game over.
When our water heater broke down last month, it was a nightmare. It took 5 hours for the plumber to show up, and he charged us a couple of $100 just to come out. And then it cost another $1,800 to put in the new water heater. By the time it was all said and done, I felt like I'd been taken. But what else could I do?
The smartest thing you can do is get a home warranty from American Residential Warranty. Their home warranties pay to repair or replace all your major appliances when they break, and they will break, and at the worst possible time. Call American Residential Warranty right now for free information on home warranties starting at just pennies a day. Don't wait for your refrigerator to stop running or your ceiling fans to stop turning. Call American Residential Warranty right now. Ask how you can save up to 50% on washer and dryer coverage. Just call 1-800-513-6154. That's 1-800-513-6154. Again, 1-800-513-6154. Call now.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.